Would this make you want to go watch the movie?
Everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them,
She's a good actress.
that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
It all started with whispers. People claimed Disney's bold reimagining of Snow White would redefine the classic for a new generation. Then, seemingly overnight, those whispers turned into roars. Rumors exploded, numbers got leaked, and now the entire world is gawking at what insiders call Disney's most humiliating downfall ever.
Snow White breaks records for the lowest live-action remake opening ever.
Yes, Rachel Zegler's Snow White is allegedly on track to lose a staggering $500 million. Shocking? Absolutely.
Snow White starring Rachel Zegler opened to a dismal $43 million, snagging the title of the lowest debut weekend for any Disney live-action remake, beating 2019's Dumbo.
But the real bombshell? The blame might be laid at the feet of none other than CEO Bob Iger, and word on the street says his days at Disney are numbered.
Falling short of $270 million budget before promotion, leaving Disney facing a brutal...
Everyone's bracing themselves for an unimaginable corporate bloodbath. But how did things reach this fever pitch?
To come out in 2024, they just released it, and here she is. This is Rachel Zegler.
Oh, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince, or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because we cast a guy in the movie,
Right.
Andrew Burnap, great dude.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024.
God.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
What?
We're not talking about a harmless slip in profits. We're talking about a potential meltdown that some say will redefine Disney's entire legacy. High-level executives are tearing their hair out. Investors are furious. And if rumors are to be believed, the big question inside those glossy boardroom walls is whether Bob Iger has already outlived his welcome. The stakes are impossibly high.
Disney responded by scaling back the premiere. I don't know that anyone really showed up to the premiere. The Rotten Tomatoes reviews are looking pretty bad, and they did, it seems like they tried to tweak a few things, but this movie is bad.
So buckle up. This story gets wilder by the minute. The first sign of trouble appeared when clips of Rachel Zegler's interviews flooded the internet. She sounded confident. Too confident, some critics said. Her remarks about the original Snow White ruffled feathers. She questioned the old storylines, challenged the princess archetype, and insisted the new version would be more modern. But first, fans were curious, maybe even excited. Then the mood shifted. Devotees of classic Disney animation felt insulted. They claimed she was trashing the film that put Disney on the global animation map.
And you have parents looking at Disney being like, what are you doing, guys? This is supposed to be a place where magic happens, and all you're doing is indoctrinating kids, and you're having this person be the poster child of the Democratic Party.
Frustration brewed on social media. Suddenly, that frustration morphed into a white-hot rage. Fans turned on Zegler with a fierceness usually reserved for the worst scandal. They accused her of disrespect. They called her statements tone-deaf. And just like that, a once promising project found itself overshadowed by the star's negativity. In the press, overnight, a conversation about representation and modern storytelling turned into a war zone, and the casualty list was only beginning. But that wasn't the whole story. Behind the scenes, Disney executives reportedly panicked. Early screening feedback was lukewarm at best, disastrous at worst. Whispers claimed test audiences felt the film lacked the classic magic they craved. Others said the entire concept felt forced. Rumors flew that Bob Iger had pushed the studio to chase modernization at any cost, ignoring the brand's legacy. Insiders whispered about tense late-night meetings where top creatives butted heads. Chaos reigned as they tried to salvage a vision that was spiraling. Then, the first box office projections leaked. The figure was catastrophic, an estimated $500 million deficit looming. For context, even modest Disney titles usually recoup budgets through streaming, merchandising, and foreign sales. But critics argued that negative public opinion was so intense it could crush the film's entire revenue potential. Panicked phone calls reportedly rattled the highest levels of the company, and at the center of every storm sat Bob Iger, the man once hailed as the savior of Disney. How quickly fortunes change, and what happened next would shock everyone. As the negative buzz surged, Rachel Zegler's controversies only amplified. People dug up old interviews. They found quotes they claimed proved she never respected the classic story. Twitter blew up. The actress's attempt to clarify her statements backfired. She tried to explain how the new Snow White championed more progressive themes, but critics twisted her words. Allegedly, top brass at Disney realized the star had unintentionally set fire to the project's promotional campaign. Suddenly, external chatter about Bob Iger's strategy took center stage. Could the man at the helm of the world's biggest entertainment empire really fail this badly? Corporate watchers pointed to signs of internal unrest. The board, rumored to be sick of the controversies, started questioning Iger's judgment. Why pick a lead actor who might alienate core audiences? Why modernize a beloved classic so drastically? The narrative took on an accusatory tone. Maybe the blame rested on leadership. Maybe Bob Iger had gambled the house and lost. Tales of behind-the-scenes conflicts erupted. Crew members supposedly felt the production was mismanaged. Anonymous leaks described chaotic filming schedules. The story allegedly changed multiple times under pressure from focus groups. Some rumored that Disney was so desperate to make a cultural statement, they forgot to make a movie that actually resonated with fans. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler became the scapegoat. Detractors pinned the entire fiasco on her public remarks, claiming her arrogance set the negative tone. Yet there was another rumor that Bob Iger demanded sweeping changes mid-production, causing confusion among the creative team. People inside the industry gossiped about meddling executives who couldn't agree on the film's direction. Everybody wanted to weigh in. The result? A cinematic stew so muddled that test audiences came out scratching their heads. And in that haze, the real possibility of losing $500 million loomed larger every day. However, the backlash only intensified. As if the controversy weren't enough, new allegations surfaced, claiming Disney's marketing team was in full damage. Control mode? They tried to hype the film's empowering angle. They highlighted Rachel Zegler's vocal talents and insisted the final product would be a fresh take on a timeless tale. Nobody bought it. A barrage of negative press overshadowed the marketing push. Online commentary from outraged fans demanded that Disney respect the original, with "Not My Snow White" trending for weeks. In the midst of that storm, voices pointed directly at Bob Iger, calling him the puppet master behind these controversial remakes. Some said it was part of his broader agenda to churn out reboots that generate conversation, but maybe this conversation was too toxic to handle. Investors started grumbling. They pressured the board to take action. People wanted a scapegoat, and according to rumors, Bob Iger's name topped that list. But the crisis was about to explode in more ways than one. Private board meetings took on an urgent tone. Allegedly, Disney's top shareholders demanded answers. How could a heritage brand like Disney screw up something as iconic as Snow White? And the accusations flew. Rachel Zegler alienated the fan base. The creative team lost the plot. Marketing bungled the rollout. But the biggest culprit? Bob Iger, they said, was no longer the visionary he once was. The rumor swirling around the entertainment world was that big names on the Disney board were plotting to oust him. They wanted new leadership. They wanted accountability. They wanted to protect the Disney name before this fiasco caused permanent damage. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, some insisted that the negativity around Rachel Zegler was an overreaction. They argued it was a minor controversy that ballooned because the film lacked other selling points. Others believed the star's attitude genuinely dented audience goodwill. But no matter the stance, a tidal wave of negativity kept pounding. And as advanced figures indicated monumental losses, panic turned into desperation. Yet the next revelation took everyone by surprise. Reports surfaced that rival studios were watching Disney's meltdown with glee. Executives from competing companies smelled blood in the water. Hollywood elites whispered that once untouchable Bob Iger was living on borrowed time. The fiasco had become too enormous, too damaging to ignore. and Rachel Zegler's name became synonymous with controversy. Her interviews, once seen as confident, were rebranded as disrespectful rants against a cherished legacy. In some corners of the internet, she became the face of Disney's downfall. Speculation soared about the potential aftermath. If Bob Iger was fired, who would replace him? Could Disney salvage Snow White through last-minute reshoots or disclaimers? Or was this a done deal with $500 million poised to vanish? Fans, outraged or smug, debated online. It was the new hot topic. Everyone had an opinion on whether Disney was reaping the results of corporate greed and poor creative decisions. Insiders began talking about an emergency plan, a possible quiet removal of Bob Iger from his CEO position, timed to coincide with the film's official box office crash. Supposedly, the board wanted to control the narrative before investors. Revolted, people close to the matter claimed the higher-ups were ready to blame him for the entire fiasco, removing him from the brand to pacify the public. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler found herself in a tricky position. Some say Disney might distance itself from her if the film's release leads to massive losses. Could they bury the star's involvement and pivot to other projects? The sense of impending doom wafted through every corner of the industry. Allies that once praised Iger's leadership style were suspiciously silent. Insiders rumored top executives were packing their desks, anticipating a domino effect of resignations. Shockwaves rippled across the internet, fueling countless theories about Disney's future. The brand that once seemed too big to fail was now fighting for its life. This alleged $500 million debacle is more than just a single film flop. It's a moment that stands at the crossroads of Disney's past greatness and its precarious present. Bob Iger's fate hangs in the balance, with his position on shaky ground. Rachel Zegler's role in the movie's downfall is hotly debated, but her name is undeniably entangled in this swirling storm. The meltdown, once whispered about in hushed boardrooms, has now erupted into the public eye. And while some might hope for a last-minute miracle, others are already predicting the end of an era for Disney. Yet the most unsettling question lingers. Even if Bob Iger walks away, will that be enough to restore Disney's battered reputation? This fiasco has forced fans to wonder if the days of pure Disney enchantment might be over, replaced by risky corporate strategies and alienated audiences. The story doesn't end when the credits roll. The ripples from this disaster will echo through Hollywood. And whether you believe Rachel Zegler is an unwitting pawn or a vocal saboteur, one fact remains brutally clear. The saga is far from finished. Disney may never be the same again,